This is a very old Austrian fairy tale. Long, long ago, maybe it happened yesterday, maybe it happened just today, there lived a farmer, and he lived with his daughter on his farm. They didn't have much, they had just a meadow, a field and a forest, and a goat. And every day the daughter brought the goat into the forest. There was a meadow, and the meadow had good, fresh and juicy grass, and so the goat found enough to eat. But one day, in the evening, the daughter of the farmer wanted to go home, but the goat, it was gone. So she called for the goat, and the goat far away, it bleated, "Ma, ma!" So the young woman looked for the goat and found it deep in the forest on a clearing. Oh, there was the goat, and there was a tree, a mighty tree, and the tree shone. It was full of wonderful, of beautiful golden apples. So the young woman went to the tree and took one of the apples. Oh, it shone so fine, like gold in the sun. And so she took a good bite. Oh, the apple, it tasted delicious. So she ate the apple, but when she looked around, there was another mighty tree, and this tree was an oak, a very old oak tree. And in the trunk of the oak tree there was a door, and the door was glittering and sparkling. And so the young woman went to the door, and she was curious what might be behind that door. And so she opened the door, and behind the door there was a staircase, and it led down into the earth. So she went down step by step, and so she came into a room. It was a beautiful room, and in the middle of the room there was a 4-poster bed, and all around the bed there were curtains. So the young woman was curious what might be in that bed, and so she went to the bed and she opened the curtains. Oh, and in that bed, what could she see there? Oh, in that bed there was a beautiful young man, and he was sleeping. So she bent down and gave him a kiss. But nothing happened. He was still sleeping. She was a little bit disappointed, and she sat down on a chair near the bed, ate the apple, looked around. The room was so elegantly furnished. And that moment she noticed a movement. And really, now you could see it. She could see it. A snake came down the stairs, and the snake grabbed towards her. So she didn't know what to do. Should she cry, run away, or kick the snake? She just sat there and thought, what could she do? But the next moment, the snake was in front of her, and the snake raised its head and began to speak like human. "Thank you," the snake said. "Thank you. You didn't cry, you didn't run away, you didn't kick me. No, you didn't do any harm to me. So thank you for that. And I ask you, please carry me up the stairs and lift me up to a branch of the oak tree. You would help me, and it will be good for you too." So the young woman took her heart and took the snake and carried it up the stairs, and when she closed the door disappeared. Oh, there was just a tree and the trunk of the tree, nothing else. So she took the snake and lifted it up to a branch of the tree, and the snake is grabbed away. So the young woman went home with the goat. And the next morning she was chopping wood in front of the farmhouse. And when she did that, suddenly she heard a noise. The wind was blowing, and a carriage came towards her. Yeah, but the carriage was flying through the air, and in front of the carriage there were 12 mighty multicolored butterflies. And they pulled the carriage. And right in front of the young woman, the carriage stopped. And the fine lady got out. And she said, "Thanks to you, my dear maid. Thanks to you. Yesterday we met, and I was the snake. I was haunted. But now I'm saved. And that's because of that what you did to me. Thank you. And please come with me into the forest to see what happened there." So the young woman was really curious what might have happened in the forest. And so she got into the carriage, and they drove back into the forest and to the old oak tree. But there was no old oak tree. No, there was no old oak tree. There was a castle, a beautiful castle, and in front of the castle, the carriage stopped. And that moment, the door of the castle opened, and who came out? The young man, the beautiful young man. And when the young woman got out of the carriage, she saw him. Yeah, she saw him, and oh, she was so happy, and he was happy too. He ran towards her, and he hugged her, and he said, "Thanks, thanks, thanks to you. I was haunted. I slept like a dead man. But now I'm awake, and that's because of you." So he said. And he looked into her eyes, and she looked into his eyes, and he said, "I would be really happy if you become my dear wife." So what should she say? The day before, she had already fallen in love with him. So she said, "Yes." And then they kissed each other. Oh, you can't imagine how good and how juicy that kiss was. And after all that, she sent a carriage to her father. And when he was back in the castle, he nearly couldn't believe that. But then They had a great wedding feast. People say it lasted for a week, maybe. And heaven knows how many children they had together. But you can be sure, all of them, they lived happily ever after.